welcome back. Like I talked about in the last video, my hook assembly came in, and as you can see, I haven't looked at it. I just went to the post office and got it. So let's go have some fun. Not sure what it's going to look like because I haven't seen it yet either. Don't expect a whole lot for $34, but now I kind of keep track of eBay or other places every once in a while just to see what comes up. Because hook assemblies, as everyone knows, they go for anywhere from 80 to 120 plus for a hook assembly. And this is one of the most common items that are removed from a machine and sold. So if I run across one at 30, 40, in that area, especially if it's a buy it now, I don't even ask the wife about it. I figure it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission sometimes. And, I just snag it. If I buy machines, I'll come across where I need to put a hook assembly on, like I did with the two that I bought. Well, first thing, you can see from the hook assembly that it looks pretty clean. I don't see a lot. I see a little bit of discoloration in the finger piece. Overall, it looks pretty good. Now, let's just see if the finger turns. I don't know. Ooh, it actually feels real nice. Wow. To say I'm a little surprised? Yeah. $34, I think I got a gem. But since we've got it here, let's go over the basic steps of disassembly. And I'll show you how to pull the center out, how to do a good cleaning and stuff. First thing I do, you'll see the set screws here and here that hold it onto the shaft. I just run those in. I don't take them out. You can take them out, you can run them in, doesn't matter. And there we go. I can see a little bit of what looks to be like there was surface rust on the back of this at one point. I don't see a lot of screw damage, like this was taken apart a lot. So that's a good sign. One thing I also have is a set of magnetic trays. I bought these at Amazon for 4 of them. It was $15. So, I just use it to locate my set screws and screws so I don't lose them. And you can see I'm using a real expensive screwdriver here. $1. Ooh. I mean, if I need more torque than this can give me for these little screws, there's something wrong. And even the gib hook screw doesn't look like it's been removed very often because I don't see any chewing on the screw. So that's a good thing. There we go. I bent that cheap screwdriver. Sometimes that's what you get with a $1 screwdriver. But I don't know if you can see it, but I twisted the tip. I guess I go back to my snap-on. I don't expect you guys to have those. Unless you like paying an exorbitant amount of money to have a tool truck pull up in your yard and there we go, service you. So if you break something, they're there to replace it and warranty it. That's the biggest thing that mechanics pay for when they buy for Snap-on and Mac is the service. You know, quality of the tools is better too. I won't argue. But, you know, you're paying for that service of them coming around checking on you. And there's a little bit of prestige involved. Hate to say it, it's kind of like a woman showing off her diamonds. To a mechanic, it's the same principle. Kind of surprised that screw's not backing out. We're going to look at this a little bit more, and I'll keep an eye. You know, there is some discoloration if you'll look. You can see around here where it's discolored a little bit. And I'm going to flip it over, and you can see where there's a little bit of surface rust that was there. Is it unsightly? Yeah. Is it going to have any effect? No. Not if it's polished and cleaned. You'll never know it. And with it being on the back, you're never going to see it anyway unless you remove the hook. So it's really a non-issue. What we're going to do next is we're going to remove this finger assembly. And there is a proper way to do it, because if you just try to pull it here, it won't come out. What you want to do is, I've either got it right or wrong. We're going to see right now, because there's two positions. What you can see is this finger right here. I'm going to try to move that over here. Boom. See how easily that came out? Didn't take much effort. All you're doing, see that little hook right there? Okay. You're going to locate that little hook about here. So once you do that, you just kind of rock it a hair and it'll come right out. I can tell the person who I bought this from knew a little bit about the sewing machine because I actually see SMO oil used in here. I see it in the raceway. I see it in the back. The thread cutters here are clean. So I had this feeling this may have been taken apart and cleaned. But it leaves me a little bit confused because as I look at it, this is all beautiful, but then you look at where the gib hook was. You can see there's quite a bit of discoloration where, you know, from the old oil and dirt and grease kind of getting mixed and kind of causing like a varnish, I guess is the best way you could describe it. You can see that. Doesn't look too pretty. And it also makes the gib hook a little bit stiffer moving in and out. You can see it on the back of the gib hook. You can see that type of varnish. We're going to remove it. So, you know, and that will help this because you saw me having a little bit of trouble once I pulled the gib hook screw out, getting this to pop open. What you're going to see me use, Q-tips. These happen to be the ones I got out of the bathroom. I was informed that wasn't to happen again. Next thing we're going to use is a little bottle of kerosene. I went to Tractor Supply. They had a gallon of kerosene. I could have gotten kerosene, you know, real kerosene, or synthetic kerosene, which is what this is. And it has less of the odor, but it still burns and works perfectly good. So since I'm using it inside, I thought, well, for $2 extra, I'll buy the synthetic. On top of that, I've got a toothbrush. I posted a link on my page where you can buy a bunch of toothbrushes and it boils down to 30 cents a toothbrush, because these are disposable items. You'll use them, they'll spread out and won't work anymore. Just toss them and grab another one. And lastly, steel wool. Works real good. It comes in different grades. Honestly, I can't tell you what this one is. It's pretty fine, but you know, it comes in handy. So let's get started and see what we can do. We're going to start with a gib hook. Let me show you again what it looks like. You have to forgive the camera operator. She's kind of new and I haven't got her trained properly.
It'd help if you didn't wiggle.
Okay. What I'm going to do, and you can see I've got a rag on my work area. That's the way I've always worked. I just put some kerosene on it. Take my toothbrush and just rub. If I'm going to have any stubborn areas, I may take my steel wool and give it a quick hit. If I have any surface rust, I'm going to definitely take the steel wool and smooth out any surface rust that is on this area, because this is where the thread slides. So if you have any roughness here from surface rust or anything, it can affect how the top thread slides over the case, the hook assembly and bobbin case. So you'll want to make sure that's clean. I've still got a little bit of stuff on it. I'm going to take my fine steel wool and just scrub it a little bit. If you're using steel wool, and if it's anything like the one I'm using that's fairly fine, do it with something under it, because little pieces of the steel wool will break off. And the last thing you want is the steel wool in your food, your pet's food, or anything else. So just use a little bit of common sense. And I'm just touching this all up all the way around, just to make sure I haven't missed anything. Once I've done that, I'll grab a clean rag and wipe it off. Now we're going to take a look at what this looks like now. If I can hold my hand steady so my camera operator doesn't get upset. So you can see the front looks pretty good now. Just a little bit of work. Now we're going to flip it over and I'll show you the back. See how that varnish is gone now? That's going to improve its movement in the...
Flip it again.
Oh, flip it again? Okay. It will improve how it slides in and out if you have to, slide the gib hook out, trying to remove a thread jam. We've got that piece done now, so we'll set it to the side. Oh, one thing I do want to mention too, you saw me talk about the magnetic tray. These small screws, I make sure to put on the magnetic tray. Nothing worse than having one of these little screws bounce on the floor, get knocked somewhere. It's frustrating. You try looking for one of these on the floor, it's tough. Put them on your tray and you won't have to worry about it. Next, let's look at the finger assembly. You can see it's got a little bit of discoloration inside, and I'm not really concerned about that. It just happens. You know, some are worse than others. If you look at the back, it's real clean. I don't see any discoloration, varnish. You know, it was taken care of well. But we're going to clean it anyway. Again, kerosene, a toothbrush, and this is a little bit more finagly, I guess you could say, because you don't have the room. But, you know, just give it a little time, a little bit of scrubbing. And if you don't have a spare toothbrush and you can't take your wife's, try some Q-tips. Your wife may get, or husband may get a little bit upset when they try to brush their teeth and it's not there. Again, I'm going to take a little bit of steel wool. The kerosene is still in there. It's kind of drying a little bit, but it's still there. So it's kind of acting like a lubricant carrier. And is this really necessary? Nah. But since we're going to the trouble of taking it apart, cleaning it, and making it look nice and functionality, you might as well see how all of it is done. Because sometimes you'll see those nice looking hook assemblies that are $120. All they've done is the same thing I'm doing right here. Taking it apart, cleaning it, maybe taking a little steel wool to it, and spending half an hour, maybe, on it, and then charging you over 3 times the amount for that same part. Seems like a pretty good deal to me. And I can spend this little bit of time doing it. I'm just looking, I see a little bit of rust down in the corner here. And I'm just taking a small screwdriver, because sometimes you'll have a little bit of gunk, I don't know the proper name that you'd even use, you know, and you just scrape it out. I mean, heck, we used to spend lots of money on scrapers. I got a nice set of Snap-on scrapers. Might have even fed the Snap-on dealer a meal or two. I know it took me a little bit of work to pay for them. Okay. I'm going to go to the edge now. The edge now, because it has a little bit of varnish on it. And again, this isn't bad. This hook assembly was in better shape than the one I purchased and redid yesterday or the day before. There we go. So you're seeing a good one. The one I received before that said it was working came out of a machine working. When I got it, it was uglier than this, and it was seized up. You couldn't budge it. Kind of makes me wonder if it was actually working when it was in the machine, because that finger assembly would have been broken if it was rotating, because it wouldn't move. But a little bit of time. Took me a little longer than this one, but I got a real nice hook assembly. Kind of frustrated because I paid, you know, about $10 or $15 more for that one than I did this. But I still ended up with something pretty good. We're going to wipe it off. And sometimes I may even take some more kerosene and kind of do like a kerosene bath to clean it up to make sure I've got everything washed out. And if you really want to, you could take a little jar or bucket or something, and I'd probably go glass if it was me, or metal, you know, like a number 10 can that coffee and stuff used to come in, and pour some kerosene in it and use it as a small wash tub. I mean, you know, we used to have Safety Clean come around. We had our fancy little wash stations, and they'd just come around every once in a while and change the fluid out, and we'd go again. Let's take a look at this one now. This is after the cleaning. And you can see on the back, looks pretty good. And the sides now have no varnish. Okay. So we've got 2 pieces cleaned. Next, we're going to take a look at the main portion of the hook assembly. And you can see it's pretty clean, but you can see some varnish where the gib hook goes. On the back, you can see some discoloration where it looks like there was some surface rust. You know, we probably won't be able to get rid of that discoloration. That's just in the metal. I'm more concerned with this area here. This area, if I can polish it up and make it look better, that's a bonus just for me, because I think it looks better. So again, kerosene bath. And I'm pretty generous. Toothbrush. You know, and I'm working a little bit to make sure I get into these raceways right here where the finger will go and it spins around, to make sure those are as clean and free of varnish and gunk as they can be. Because that's really where the work goes on for the finger, is in those raceways, you know, for movement. So, and brush the outside. I'm going to flip it over and brush it down a little bit. Now, I'm going to take the steel wool again. And we'll go from there. One thing I might mention to you too, on the chroming process, I actually had to deal with that too. Because on headlights and taillights, when you're making the buckets, they have to be chromed. So I can't say about chroming metal, because I've only done chroming plastic. And it's a real interesting process, because you put your parts on a rack, and the rack goes in this big cylinder, is the best way I can describe it. And inside that cylinder, they've got bars of aluminum. And the process is, it would pull such a strong vacuum, you know, that there would be no atmosphere. And I forgot how many atmospheres it pulled minus, but put it this way, you'd be gone just like that. It would rip you apart. So once the vacuum was drawn, some chemicals were pumped in to help clean it and prep it. And then the aluminum became a vapor and coated the parts. And I'm trying to remember if we put a coating on top of it. I think it was just the aluminum that coated the plastic parts, and we pulled them out and verified them. And it was very common to have a pretty high defect rate, because as you can imagine, trying to keep all particulates out of it and the parts clean, when you put them in, it's pretty hard. So I don't remember the exact percentage rate that we had of failures, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was around the 20 to percent range, and that was accepted. I mean, they knew the process and they knew their fallout rate, but it was fun to learn and fun to see. It was a real fun program. I mean, the way they had it set up in the booths, and we had 2 of them set in one area, and then we got in a new. It was a cool one. It was actually a revolver style, where you'd cycle them through, and you had different stations as it was turning, and it was neat. It was neat. It was a bear to get set up, but once it was running, it improved in efficiency a whole lot. A lot of talking, I know, I'm sorry. But it takes a little bit of time to do this, so I figure it's better than me sitting here and doing this and you just looking at me working. Heck, my wife has a hard time looking at me too for long periods. Okay. Now, if you had an air compressor and you were in an area where you could use that and blow these out and make sure you get all particulates out and dry it and all the fancy stuff you can do. Since we don't have that here, and I'm not willing to hook my air hose up from my little shed to bring it in here, we're just going to go the other way. Okay. Let me wipe my fingers down so you don't see me leaving marks because of kerosene residue. Okay. Let's take a look at what we ended up with. Now, if you look in this area, you remember how that had quite a bit of varnish on it? Nice and clean now. And if you look along this edge, see how shiny and smooth it is? If possible, we'll see if my wife can get into this area to show you the raceway. She's trying, so let's give her a minute if you see something change. You can see how nice and clean that is. There's no varnish in that area. What's important with this raceway, okay, and what I'm talking about, if you look at the finger, you'll see this piece right here. That's what's actually circling around on this raceway. So if they're both smooth and clean, you're going to get less resistance. Now, let's go back to putting it back in and see if what I told you about taking it out still holds true. We're going to take that, I'm sorry about holding it, but that little hook right there, and we're going to place it in this area. And the easiest way to do it is to hold the post. I'm kind of setting it in a little bit because the raceway is recessed, so I'm setting it in and I'm just positioning it, and look at that. See how easy that went together? It's a lot easier than trying to put a certain hook place in a position and go elsewhere. Just use that to guide off of and you'll be set. And it spins smooth and it's dry too. There might be a little bit of residue. Now, since we're there, let's look at the back plate. That's the last piece we're going to look at, and then we're going to reassemble everything and see what we got. So that's the front. You can see some dust and dirt, grease, varnish. Let's see if we can get rid of it. We're going to use the same process we did before. Little bit of kerosene. And toothbrush. On these bottles, I've also got a link on my page that will show you where you can get 2 bottles that are good, a fairly decent volume of sewing machine oil that's good. It's White Lily, and sewing machine oil, all it really is just refined mineral oil. So one's not really a whole lot better than the other. And the reason you want a mineral oil, at least with mine, and one of the reasons I use it is mineral oil will not stain like a petroleum-based oil. So, the big selling point was will not stain your clothes if some drops on it. I use it on my quilting machine because I make sure my quilting machine is oiled, and sometimes I get a little bit of a drop out of it onto my quilt, which isn't a big deal because it'll wash right out. We're getting there. All that old varnish and gunk is coming off. Might even look real nice. After I'm done this, you think I could post this and sell it for $120? I'm sure somebody would buy it. But you know something? With shipping, okay? I paid $34 for it. With shipping, I've got a total of $42.50 into it. So if I sold it for $120 with as little time as you see me doing, I'd be happy with that profit margin. I may be a little bit frugal and not like to spend money, but I'll tell you one thing. I sure like taking other people's money. I don't know of too many people who don't. Okay. Now we're going to put the gib hook back in, and let's see if we can line it up. This sometimes can get a little finagly, lining it up. And I'll tell you up front, this one, the screw didn't drop out, which even gives it a little bit more fun, because you don't have the ability to actually look down in the hole. And there we go, it popped out. And since it did, I'm going to drop it on my tray. I'm going to drop in a little bit of kerosene and wiggle a brush in there a little bit. Maybe I can clean the threads out a little bit. Now with this, let me tell you, the thread is not in this portion. The thread comes into this portion in here, and that's where the actual threads are. This up here is just a hole. And it helps to have a good light. And now we grab that little, I don't even know if you can see that little itty bitty screw.
I can now.
That is why I rely on that magnetic tray. $15 for 4 of them. That's a pretty good deal to me. I think we got it. Nope. Or do I? Nope, I ain't got it. Like I said, this can be a little finagly because there isn't a whole lot to line up and see. I've tried doing it this way. I've tried putting the gib hook screw in and then trying to do this side, I don't know. I haven't really... There we go. Finding a real easy and efficient way. Yeah. I guess I'm still on the struggle bus with you guys. There we go. Let's slide the gib hook back into position. And you've probably heard at this point from other people, and I just may repeat it just to hear me speak. When you're pulling a gib hook out, don't pull on the hook up here. Always come down to where you've got a meaty area and pull, because this may bend your hook a little bit. So always do it on a meaty portion. There we go. And the one thing is, sometimes magnetic tip screwdrivers are good. Sometimes they can be frustrating as all get out. And this may be one of them. Because when you're trying to place that screw in there, yeah. This is one of them. Let's try the cheap screwdriver. Maybe it's not magnetized. There we go. Now I can switch back. And go slow. These are fine threads. The last thing you want to do is cross thread these pieces. Can they be fixed? You might be able to find a tap, tap to run down in there and fix it. But if you totally bugger up the threads in this piece, you can replace the screw. Cost you $7 or $8, for the screw. But you bugger this up, that's the main portion of your hook assembly. So take your time. Now, I don't know if I showed you this piece after I cleaned it. You remember how much varnish was on the back of that? Looks pretty good now. In the front, just a little bit of cleaning. And the discoloration on the back of the hook assembly, you can see a lot of it's gone. It's cleaned up pretty nice. There is still some discoloration, and that's just the way it is. But it's not dirty, and it's smooth. Next, we're going to put the back piece back on. And guess what? We've got one more screw and we're done. Okay. And this is where it really does come in handy, having proper fitting screwdrivers. It is less likely to roll the edges of your screw. A proper fitting screwdriver is important. Cost of the screwdriver, not necessarily as much. I mean, this set of screwdrivers, I think I paid 50 plus. But it has the Snap-on name, so you're paying for it. They're not long. I don't need a whole lot of torque because these are fine screws, and if I have that much torque, what happens if I mess up? Let me get off track just a hair, but it kind of pertains to this since we're talking on these screwdrivers. When you're told that you have a longer screwdriver, you have more power, your grip gives you more power. Yeah, it's true, okay? But the one thing that you have to keep in mind, this tip has to stay in contact with the slot. So if you have all this force going this way, but you don't have enough force pressing it into the screw, then you stand a good chance of rolling that screw too. So you've got to also make sure you have that downward pressure on the screwdriver to keep it pressed in tight to the screw. That was my rant for the minute. Now let's take a look at this hook assembly. It's totally assembled, spins like a baby's butt, and I haven't even put oil in it yet, which I'll do in a second. And you can see the back. Nice and clean now. As a final note, let's put a drop of oil on it so we can say we've done that too. Yep, works good. I think I did good for a $42 investment. I hope you were able to learn something about this. Keep an eye out on eBay, Facebook. When I say Facebook, I'm talking Marketplace. Etsy, from what I've seen, I kind of steer clear of. It seems like they are pretty proud of their stuff there, and it goes for more than I'd pay for. But you can still find good deals, and if you find stuff like this, and if you are into working on featherweights, it's not a bad idea to have a few of these inexpensive items when you find them inexpensive on hand. It's a lot better to have them, and then when you need it, pull it out, than at the last moment be scrambling for something that's hard to find and you end up paying a high dollar for it. But take it for what it's worth. It's up to you now. Thank you for sharing some time with me, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.